Good afternoon. It's Joyful Christian Hermit here. I got something in my eye for a couple hours now. Oh, it's been terrible. I was remembering this one priest. He didn't mean it as a compliment. He said I was a lightning rod for trouble. But it's true. It's true. I've asked Jesus to heal my eye. I mean, you guys, some of you guys talk about how anytime you need something, you ask Jesus to heal you and you're healed. And of course, sometime you're going to ask him and he's not going to heal you because we all die of something sometime. But, I think it's so wonderful that you ask Jesus to heal you and he heals you. Plus, I suspect you don't have the situations I have. One after another after another. I know I was called to suffer. I woke up, this was 1998. I was having a pain siege. It was the first weekend that I had happened to have a pain siege that coincided with the soup kitchen, but I had people volunteer who then knew what to do. They didn't need me. I was dispensable then. So they handled the soup kitchen all that weekend. And it wasn't the first morning of the pain siege. It was, I think, the third day of it, maybe. It was Memorial Weekend, and I think it was that Monday morning. I woke up and heard called to suffer. And I was being told I was to write this. It wasn't all these words saying, you just get it like in a flash, a thought flash, and you know what it is you're to do. But I was told, the call to suffer, though, was definite words. And then I was to write a newsletter about suffering. A lot of the people we delivered to, all of them, had suffering of one sort or another. They all needed love. And the reason they did was because they had sufferings of various kinds. A lot of them didn't have much money. Others were elderly and lonely. Others had had a surgery and needed, it's just nice, a touch of love. To have some soup and a dessert and a fruit or something or veggies, to go a homemade roll or something to go along with it. And somebody coming to the door who cared. A stranger, we were all strangers to the people we'd get notice that, take to this person or that person. I had worked initially through a service, paid kind of a agency that helped people with financial needs, got people that way to take soup to, but it just grew and grew and grew. The number of people who needed love, and it would vary, they'd go off the, wouldn't need it then, they'd get better or whatever, but I knew I was to do a newsletter for them, and I did, up until when I was kicked out of my own soup kitchen. Not kicked out, run out. Scapegoated. I was scapegoated. It was the priest who said I was a lightning rod for trouble one time. But he's the one that finally did me in totally by all those homilies against me from the pulpit that whole weekend. And ironically, the very next day out of that weekend, September 12th it was, or something, or 13th, was the St. John Chrysostom, and the next day was the Triumph of the Cross. So my spiritual father told me, meditate on St. John Chrysostom and just be glad I wasn't run out of my own hometown. But I was about 2 years later. You gotta laugh about it, What else? What else? I don't know what got into my eye. Could have been anything. I had actually gotten up and was trying to build up more stamina. I was making Lebkuchen because I've been sick since December 20th. I try to make Lebkuchen at Christmas in memory and honor of my mother's side of the family, or her mother's side, German. And so this is an authentic 17 or 1800 recipe that my mother used to make. She liked genealogy and, the Eberhards and the Aids and the Stetzels and all. And so this was one of their recipes from Germany way back. And they're delicious, but I was determined. So I've been too sick to make them. But I thought, well, at least stir it together. Stir the ingredients, very simple. And put it out in the snow in a pan to chill for the hour. And now there's no way I can manage to roll them out and bake them. I'll just let them chill I put them in the refrigerator now so they wouldn't freeze. But goodness sakes. Anyway, I'm surprised I didn't lose more viewers, from what I said in one of the videos regarding disorders, personality disorders, and mentioning, that the DSM, I don't know what it was back then, 3, but they took out a disorder. It was politically motivated. Still it, people know it was. It had to do with gender and sexual disorders. So they took it out as being a diagnosable issue that people can get help with, therapy with. And because it became very politically unpopular. But I dare to say, I don't think it's a big deal to have a disorder. I have a disorder. I have a big one, born with it. Mystics, they're about as disordered as you can get. Oh my lands, we're weird. In a way that people you can't even get Dr. H doesn't really understand it. And he witnessed things back in 1985. Well, in 1985, I went to him because a good friend had told me that I was weird, not weird or different. She said I was different. And she said she realized that I didn't realize it, but that all of my friends did from the church, it's a Lutheran church I belonged to, and I had when I was married. They recognized it even then. I didn't know. My husband realized. He left me wasn't nice. He said he didn't like my mysticism. Wasn't familiar with the word. I looked it up and it didn't go into the spiritual aspects, of course, not in a dictionary. They don't. It was more, I don't know. Anyway, I was upset because I've always just wanted to be normal, done everything I could to be normal, to pass myself off as normal. Because I sensed by college somebody said something about me being different. It's a woman who had psychological problems or mental problems. Seriously. She was a student, but she'd been hospitalized and institutionalized for a while, bless her heart. And I don't know exactly what her diagnosis was. Maybe bipolar or something, but untreated, and then got bad with her. So she was institutionalized for a while, but she was there at college, small college, and in a sorority. I was in a sorority. Oh, for pity's sakes, I had no business doing that. But my sisters had been in it. I wanted to be like them, normal. But it didn't last. I got out of it. But yeah, I remember that woman. She's the first one that said, "You're different, and you're not going to like it, but you are." And she says, people will treat you like they do me, and you'll be lucky if you stay out of the booby hatch, she said, because she'd been in. She called it that. And she was very blunt and direct and on meds and things. God bless her. Good for her being in college and I don't know if she graduated or what a trial. But we were all very kind to her. At least I was. But that upset me. I typed a letter and mailed it to my mom and dad, and they called the house mother. My mom did. She was upset. I was upset. I don't belong in a booby hatch. But I and my dad, they were, I was top of my class and secretary of the class and president of all the clubs I was in and stuff. I was a good little leader. And kids liked me, but I think they liked me I wasn't popular. I wasn't with the in crowd like that. I wasn't into that kind of thing, but I think the kids respected me and admired me for what I would do or help do. Church, in youth group and stuff, church youth group, but no. Anyway, no, I'm different, and that's how when you're a mystic, So, but back in '85, Dr. H talked with me and told me, well, you've got to learn to live a double life. Live a double life. You got to live a double life, so that people won't recognize you're different. He didn't want me to be different either, and worked with me to try to fake it, I guess. I don't know. But because he recognized I was spiritually different, and felt that if I would live a double life, mask it, hide the spiritual. And of course that didn't work. But people in my Lutheran church were very good to me. Like my friend who told me I was different, she says, but we love you anyway. We love you anyway, but we don't have those experiences. We don't have dreams like that. We can't tell things about what's happening or going on that's different, that see-through stuff. But anyway, I would have to say I'm disordered. I've accepted it for years now. And I stopped trying to, be something else. I think the last time I tried something was with trying to dress, fit in with dress. And well, you could see some of my old videos. I'd get my hair fixed. It would be streaked or not just subtly, got my hair cut and styled and put on makeup, as a mask, really. Tried to be something I wasn't. And I told my eldest daughter I was going to start buying, TJ Maxx sale stuff, but put together a wardrobe to fit in with the cathedral people, the women, so I would look like them and could pass myself off. And of course, she was, by then, well, she had one child, maybe two by then, babies, little children and husband, and she worked for Microsoft. She still does. Proud of my eldest daughter. All my kids. We're all proud of our kids. But anyway, my eldest daughter said, good luck. She said, go ahead and try, Mom. Go ahead. She says, I'll give you a year, 2 at the most. She says, a year, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out, Mom. And they did. I was priest's lightning rod for trouble or whatever, and putting me through the business about they wanted the help from my mysticism, but they didn't like it. They put me through the ringer with my ecstasies. I couldn't help those. But yeah, I'm a disordered person. Spiritually disordered. This isn't normal. uh, having dreams or hear a door opening when I'm waking up and know that someone's died or in the family, just dreams that bilocating, being going over to some other country and able to speak a language and console some parent of the daughter had died, 16-year-old girl. This was maybe maybe around 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. I'd had that. I tried to tell it to Reverend Monsignor, because it was a response. I worried then when that I hadn't helped or something. And it was strange, and I was trying to put it together. Was I really there in this other country? But yeah, and I was able to communicate. And I didn't know the language, but and I tried to get help from Reverend Monsignor, what is this? What was that? Was that real? And he didn't want to. He sort of stared at me and shrugged. He would stare and shrug. That was his thing he'd do to me, just stare and shrug. Big, tall priest, about three or maybe 5 years older than me. And rector of the cathedral, and he really would have been in a CEO position in a company, administrative like that. That was really, where he'd have excelled. But he had 3 major positions in the diocese, and he liked that. But he had disorder. He was OCD. Everything had to be in order all the time, even the little bulletins and everything. Of course, then he didn't like me. I was out of order, so I bothered him terribly. Because I never knew what was going to happen, what weird thing would happen next with me. But, but they don't have something like this in the DSM-5. I don't think they want to deal with spiritual things. That's not politically correct in our time period. And doesn't go over well in churches. Depends. If you have a priest who's had some experiences or empathy and understanding of the mystical, but otherwise you get pretty put through the ringer. And God will bless you with a spiritual father or someone. I was blessed with my spiritual father, who he didn't have the experiences, but he was so old, long in the priesthood, and he hadn't had anyone like me before ever. He said he'd never, ever encountered anyone like me in all his, at first it was, he ended up 72 years in the priesthood, and so he was in his 51st or 2nd year when he met me. So he said he'd never, ever encountered these things, but I'm small fry compared to others. My disorder isn't as extreme. I guess I could console myself with that. But no, it doesn't bother me to have disorder. And I mentioned with the sexual thing that I used to ponder, what if I had been born with same-sex attraction, or convinced that I was really should have been born a boy. Although I think that's a more recent thing. That wasn't a thing when I was growing up at all. It was understood that little boys and girls often would, a little girl would have penis envy, be curious about little boys, what they looked like, and if they had a brother or something, they'd get a glimpse, or a boy would maybe be born a little more sensitive and think, well, maybe I should have been a girl. Or if they were born in a family of boys and the mother really, really wanted a daughter, they might, try to be the daughter for the mother, be more sensitive to the mother and closer because she wanted a daughter and they knew it. They kids aren't stupid. They can pretty much figure things out. I knew that my parents wanted a boy. I was the third of three girls. And my mom mentioned how my dad wanted to keep trying, but she didn't want. He even bought her a mink cape when I was born. And it was a girl to try to encourage her. And it was April 18th. And, here she couldn't wear a mink cape, but she wore it home from the hospital. She loved that cape, that fur. But it didn't work. She was done. But I remember being little. I think maybe my third birthday, I asked for a little model race car to put together, and had a little motorized, and sort of wanting to please my dad with that I was interested in that. And baseball, I wanted an electric baseball game, and my boy cousin had one of those. And but that was about the extent of that. I also like dolls and things, so but it was intentional. I figured it out, and I wanted to make them not feel so bad having me as a daughter, and did a lot. Wanted to please them, and if I could go along with him on a short, he traveled, but he had accounts in the next town, a couple of towns over, and if I got to go along with him, that was a big deal. Well, I had empathy, but but I, no one at all encouraged it in me, not at all. And my dad was very pleased with me as a girl, but I tried to make it up to him, but not in any big way. And I didn't think that I was been born a boy. That wasn't a thing in the 50s. No one, or 60s. That's just been in the last 10 years or so where, big deal, even teachers will, it's sad. I've read news articles where a kindergartner or first grader, the teacher would try to influence them, that, well, if they were a boy that was a little more effeminate or sensitive, or a girl that was a little more active or boyish acting, would try to encourage them and suggest, well, did you ever think, maybe you were meant to be a boy or a girl and you could do something about that? And the school districts, some of these school districts, parents are allowed to know if the child is if the teachers are even discussing those things with their child and encouraging them, well, you can have an operation and you don't have to be a boy anymore, and you don't have to be a girl anymore. It's really horrific, really horrific. And there's been incidents. I've read books on these things. I was working on my doctorate, clinical psychology. I've read books on the gender dysphoria and on even, what causes people to take seriously, if they are lesbian or homosexual or gay, as they get older and act on it, what makes them go that direction ultimately. And there's different factors that can occur, including being encouraged. And there were case studies, and one was a mother who wanted a little boy, and she turned her little girl into one. And another one, I knew of one a woman, an older woman. I knew her personally. And she had one child, a little boy, and she feminized him. I knew them when he was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and she wouldn't let up. And it warped that child. Truly did. She had an issue. She was the one with the issue, with the problem. So, but it's not always the case, But people have disorders. So, and I do. This isn't normal. This isn't typical. Mystics aren't normal or typical at all. So what? And I went to Dr. H to get help. And his thing is to try to be something I'm not. Split myself. He said, you've got to learn to live a double life. You can do this, And no, I couldn't. Some people are astute. A lot of people are, but even in the Lutheran church then I was in, people would start noticing, they would pick up on stuff. But they would come to me and, are you psychic? See, that was their thing. That was comfortable. Or New Age. They would get fearful. But then when it became very obviously I wasn't at all New Age, I was extremely Orthodox, Christian, religious, then it was, well, she's got to be psychic. Then it's psychic. Because Protestant, the mystics and mysticism isn't so much in Protestantism, or the ones who are, they then get into New Age. I have seen it over and over, and I've also seen it in Catholics who become New Age because they couldn't withstand the rigmarole that you go through as a Catholic if you're a mystic. The trials and tribulations you're put through. And look at me, I basically had God put me in exile because it was just get to be ridiculous what I was put through with the ecstasies. That was run out of parishes for it. And the bishop who thought he had it figured out, but then turned on me, decided no. When I don't know what it was, from one year saying I'd saved the church through the mystical, seeing this priest and seeing he was himself living a double life and successfully so, except I saw through it. God had me see through it. It wasn't me. It was God. But let me know and showed me what he was doing at night, even with his porn addiction, with the computer, and his attraction to age 13 or prepubescent boys. And finally I reported him. Oh, you've saved the church. Because, yeah, he was a very sick man. And disordered. Sexually disordered. Plus gay. But not all gays are, doing these other things at all. It's just like psychopaths. Not all psychopaths are criminal or acting on things in a way that's harming others or will harm others. So see, I'm a realist. I call it as it is. And my very best friend growing up, I loved him. I thought we would end up marrying sometime. But he was effeminate. My dad mentioned it in high school, when I was in high school. And it was sort of upsetting. My dad didn't go further with it. My dad was very kind and discreet, but he saw it. Well, I'd gone on some dates. We'd gone to a dance together. And he mentioned it. I think probably, to protect me or from being hurt. And, figuring, I should recognize. But he was very creative, and he's very successful. He's been married to a man for, I don't know, maybe 35 years now. Had several partners. One or two of them died of AIDS. That was sad, but he didn't get AIDS, fortunately. But, yeah, but, I was so naive, even as when my divorce happened and we reconnected, I thought finally because then he hadn't married. And I had in my mind that, we were finally going to get together. And he called me or something, invited me to come visit, and said he was in a relationship. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to come visit you. I said, that would be too awkward for your girlfriend. And there was this silence, and he said my name. Don't you realize I'm gay? And I had to try to maintain and get off the phone, as soon and as without letting on that I was holding back one of the hardest cries I'd ever had. I just couldn't, it was just hard to accept. And I thought back about my dad, just sort of quietly mentioning, well, he's rather effeminate, sort of in passing. I remember I was standing in our entryway of my house. I was, I think, a sophomore or junior in high school, but it all wasn't a thing then. That was in the later 60s. I think there was maybe one girl in town who dressed like a boy and was very rough and very masculine and cut her hair short. And people would make comments as to, why she was doing that, that was abnormal, But she didn't have, there were no guys. She wasn't hooked up with another woman or a guy or anything. She's just very much alone. It was sad. But everyone accepted that she was disordered, wasn't a normal kind of a thing to do. It was very extreme. And so, but then it did become, I think back then, the true men and women who were same-sex attraction, they were more behind the scenes with it, kept it very hidden, because it was so socially unacceptable, and people were cruel and unkind. And, they wouldn't be hired even, and they were really ostracized and put upon. And unchristian behavior toward them, be it a man or a woman with same-sex attraction. And the men would marry, and try to make it, they would sacrifice their true sexual desires, would have children even, and women the same, and be miserable. So, when I mentioned that, it's not anything that I consider to be horrible or, but it's a disorder, like I'm disordered, like there's many disorders, like histrionic. I didn't mention histrionic personality disorder. People who, act out more flamboyantly or attention getting or dramatic, theatrical. And that's the disorder. If it gets out of bounds, it's a disorder. Anything that gets beyond so many markers that maintains a balance. So there's, it's like autism and being on the spectrum, as they say. They no longer have, as a disorder, the, what was it called? Oh, I think it starts with an A or something. Well, there's the, I just said the word. Got such a headache today, too, from my neck. My cousin has the autism, and then the other that was a lesser pronounced. You're probably saying the word for me. Anyway, that has been removed as a diagnosis. And they just say it's on a low spectrum of the autism spectrum. My good friend's son, adult son, is on the spectrum. Highly, he works, he's very, very intelligent, but has trouble with eye contact. And like when he would come, I'd have like a Christmas brunch and invite the couple, and they'd bring their son with them. Of course, he'd be invited. But he would like just get up in the middle of the meal and just start wandering around my house, back in the bedrooms, a different room. That was when I was back in the Midwest, into my library room, which was fine. He wanted to look at the books or whatever, but he'd wander into my bedroom or wander into the other room, just as if he was lost, just like a specter, getting up and just wandering. Well, he was on the spectrum, and I understood and didn't say anything. And I think I did get up at one point to go back to check, what was he doing? But, yes, because by then, I think that was around in 2012, I had pain meds then, low dose. But this one doctor had finally given them to me when his nurse, I thought I was having a mental breakdown. I was just I couldn't stop crying for days, like 3 or 4 days. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go to mass. I was just sobbing. And I called, and that nurse got on the phone. And I said, you know what? I was just couldn't stop crying, and what's wrong? And am I, having some kind of a breakdown? And she asked me questions. No, you're in just way too much pain. You need to be on pain medicine. And she knew that I had back trouble and also in severe pain. But she told the doctor, and he gave me pain meds. Only one who did, finally. And she's the one, though, that said, you can't just take it when you're getting worse, when you're having a pain siege. You have to stay on it steadily. And you're not going to be, she said, you're not going to be addicted. I was always worried about that. She said, no, people who have severe pain. And the nurse way back with my first surgery in 1987, she met me being brought in to the hospital because my pain was so severe. And they knew they were going to have to do emergency surgery on me. They were going to try to put it off. And they realized they couldn't, and brought me in just to get it under control 3 days before the doctor could operate on me. she met me. I remember seeing her at the top of the stairs with this big, huge hypodermic just waiting for me. And because they knew I was in bad shape and that I was being brought in. And she was waiting. And I said, no, 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 no pain med, no, nope, not going to get addicted. And she had quite a little lecture for me and explained, you do far more harm to your body, your organs even, your heart, your brain. You'll be more of a mess if you don't get this pain under control. And you won't be addicted. And I've never been addicted. I've never been high. That's one of the signs. If you're on pain meds and you get high, you don't need them or you have too much. And I've never, but of course I've never been without pain. But anyway, the pain's a disorder. People can and do assume that I'm an addict. That happened a lot. And maybe some of you think it too, because the government and the ads and all, they've done a good job. Well, they don't want addicts. People who don't need pain medicine taking it are addicted. They will be addicted, guaranteed. They're taking it for their emotional wounds or whatever, or to get high at parties or want to get high, and they get hooked, and they get hooked fast. So it's nothing to mess with. But if you have severe, intractable, constant pain, you can read up online Mayo site under opioids and arachnoiditis. This is the only medicine that will help keep the pain under control. So I literally think more clearly. I could not begin to drive if I wasn't on pain meds. That's the hoot. It's a sad hoot. But you signed a contract and all this. But the pain doctor knows, they all know, the nurses, that it's the pain medicine that makes you able to function. Without it, at this point, I don't know, at this level of pain, I would probably just shoot myself. I don't have a gun. Well, I do have an air rifle. I guess if I got it here, but that would be I wouldn't be able to pull the trigger. You'd have to hit yourself right in the temple to kill yourself with an air rifle. But I don't know how I wouldn't maintain sanity at all. That was years ago, and this is progressive. So, see, I'm disordered. People would think I'm disordered being on pain meds, and it's a disorder having this kind of pain. This is a disorder. And my mysticism's a disorder. Big deal. And people treat me a lot worse than I've been treated a lot worse. Well, the gay priest that I was trying to help a little bit, trying to get him to get help for his porn addiction and all this, and was hoping he would, bow out himself, but he wouldn't. But anyway, we'd have talks, and I'd say, well, I understand, I said, I'm got issues, and he says, well, but yours is not awful. He says, mine is awful. He says, mine is bad. He says, mine's not good to be like I am. And not in a disordered way, but he was doing bad stuff with it. He says, but mine's sinful, what he would do, his behavior, the porn and stuff. So I think, the best thing is to have a lot of compassion for disordered people, no matter what the disorder is. But and then the best way to get through disorders and to manage having a disorder, the sense of it, if you find it humiliating or embarrassing or whatever, or you want to be in denial about it or whatever is the issue, it's through God is that we make it. It's through God that I cope with the pain. And being a mystic and how people reacted in parishes and priests did. I was blessed with my spiritual Da, who was very compassionate and understanding and took time to really get to know me, that I was not pulling anything ever. So we continue on in life. But I think it's too bad when people have tried to influence children, especially with sex change operations, and when they're young and have been influenced. And so I hope something can be done legislatively about that they need to be adults to make that decision for themselves. But we all, I think the world has done very, very well, society has, with having compassion for same-sex attraction people. And the transgender, if they're adults and they have had this gender dysphoria for 20 years or something, or 15, and they're adults and they want to have their genitals removed or have a fake one put on or whatever. I don't know if, now I'm not up on it, if they have organ transplants that they'll do, penis transplants or whatever, vaginal transplants for males. I don't know, but I think once you're an adult, that's up to you to decide, and for the person to decide, and for the rest of us too. Have compassion and move on from it. And I pray the same for mystics, that mystics will be given kindness and understanding. And but I think that, here I am online, but I don't discuss anything mystic or spiritual like of a unusual nature to anyone around. My mother knew I was different, and she was a little, not much, but her grandmother, blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, felt this is generational, and she thought could be, it runs in family. She thought could be every other generation, not a given that someone will have mystical inclinations, but can have inclinations. But that God himself, though, in a generation when mystics are dying out, when a mystic is dying, God has another mystic ready to come take that person's place. That was Anne Catherine Emmerich's insights from God. She was a mystic, I think, 1700s, I think. And but no, I think be discreet. I wouldn't have pushed. If I had been same-sex, I wouldn't have pushed it with society or demanded that people recognize me or whatever. That's just me, though. I would have, and that's how I am as a mystic. Except I'm doing these videos anonymously, but I wouldn't. I'm doing this hopefully to help people, help others with my disorder, with the same with mystic disorder, because you will run into trouble with people, and the devil tries to do things to you, trick you, and or some people can go to their head and they get, think wow, or I don't think many mystics would, because you get mistreated. So within the church, you get, go through the devil's advocate gauntlet, and you're doubted, and you doubt yourself as far as you're trying to discern things and trying to fit in with society. So, and with your relatives and things, I had a message for a cousin once that would have really, I thought, would have reassured him. He was convinced his brother was gone to hell. He got very into fundamentalism. And his brother had cancer and died, and was not an active fundamentalist religious type like his brother. And so that cousin thought that his brother was in hell. And I was shown Bill. And he was in purgatory, but headed for much light. He had so much light around him, but there was still a partition between us. A sliding glass door was used to show me. That's how God shows me if people are in purgatory or out of purgatory. There's always some kind of partition between us. When they're in heaven, there's nothing between us. When I first saw my dad after he died, maybe like 3 Earth months after he had died, there was a screen between us. But he was, God showed me him, because I always felt that my dad was very upset in life when I became Catholic. Only time I ever saw him cry. And an older friend had visited them and told me how he cried with them. That was something for my dad to have cried in front of other people. Never saw him at home growing up cry, ever. And to hear that he had cried in front of, they were out to dinner, he started crying that I'd become a Catholic. Wow, that hit me hard. And then when he got tears in front of me, talking about, all he said was, my mother never allowed us to play with Catholics. And he just looked off. He was sitting in a chair, I was laying on the sofa, and he was having this talk with me, and he just got tears welled up, and he just looked off like, now how could I have ever done this? And his own daughter, when he wasn't even allowed to play with Catholics as a child, they were so bad. And so when he died, I a few days later, I really was in tough emotional shape, feeling like I had really let him down. And so it wasn't right then, though. It was a month, or maybe it wasn't 3 months after he had died. Maybe it was a month. But shortly after that, maybe a month later, then God showed me my dad. And he was behind a screen. And I was brought into a banquet table. And all these plates were laid. It was a sumptuous banquet. I was shown a seat. I was at the end of the table, and all I had was a plain roasting ear on a white plate. All these other plates were elegant plates, elegant china with sumptuous food, but at least I was at the table. I thought, wow, I was just thrilled. It didn't matter to me that I was at the foot of the table and given just a plain roasting ear on a white plate. I was honored to have been included at the table. And then I was stood up and was taken down this hallway, and there was a screen on one side, and my dad was there. And there was glass window on the other side. He had been watching me. I didn't realize. He had watched that I'd been brought in and was allowed to sit at the table. I guess the table of the Lord. And my dad was, I was taken down this hallway with the glass that showed into the room, but I couldn't see on the other side. There was a screen, and my dad was sitting there, and he was beaming. He was beaming at me. He was so proud. It was like he was going to burst with pride. And I knew then that it was all okay, that my emotional just thinking of it, that my dad saw that God was pleased with me, even though I was lowly, but I was at least at the table. And that just thrilled my dad. But I knew he was still in purgatory. And it was a few months after that. It was around Easter time that year. He died in November the year before. It was at Easter time that I was shown him, his guardian angel, walking him into heaven, taking him. And that was a thrill. So anyway, so I can always tell. And there was no screen or anything. He was just at the point of his guardian angel, finished walking with him. It was all symbolic, But that let me know that our guardian angels are with us until we get to heaven, at least from what I was shown then. So that's sort of exciting, I think. Anyway, anybody else that I've been shown, there's always some kind of a partition. My mother, same. Not the same type, but she couldn't move, she couldn't speak to me, she could look at me, and she was desperate to reach out to try to touch me and hug me. But she was still like in a coffin, and she wasn't in a coffin. She was cremated, so she didn't have. But what I was shown was she was still in a coffin with like a glass or plastic over the top. And, but she was so happy to see me. I was led into this big empty hall, and there was just a simple coffin over there. I was led over, and I looked down, and it was my mother. And she was so, she was using her eyes to express love to me. And I had been in a pain siege, so she was always so practically, living through it with me. When she would find out I was in a pain siege, if she'd happen to call and hear my voice, she could always tell. And so, and it didn't live there, But anyway, she was every ounce of her trying to move, to reach her arms out. But of course she had that, that we were screened from each other, or a partition, clear partition. And, but then later on, I saw her directly. She didn't talk to me though, but she was bathed in light, and she had a brilliant yellow dress on, very bright, and smiling, and So either she was in heaven or very, very close. And I didn't see her angel with her. So every now and then I still pray, that she's in heaven. But I haven't seen her or talked with her since. Oh yeah, so it must be because she reassured me another time. And she also called my aunt using a tangible, God had a temporal phone. I've shared that story before. I might again, because Dan, who sort of helps me with this video stuff, he's good with this. He says, it's okay if you repeat things because people tend not to go back to the beginning of your videos and go all the way through them. So they'll miss things. So go ahead and repeat stuff. But anyway, I wanted to just sort of express that to me, disorders aren't terrible. In fact, I think it's good to have the DSM-5 and have disorders listed. And there's no shame in having disorders. It's an affliction, and we can get help. The problem is if we deny that we have disorders. And homosexual people don't have to get help. But I would think they would want just to, in the adaptation process, because at some level, maybe they sort of figure it's not regular. In nature, they can't conceive. The men can't have babies, and they do have a very high divorce rate. Relationships are, off the charts breakups compared to the heterosexual. Although that's sort of a wonder because of the divorce rate. I don't even know what it is now. And people then don't even bother getting married now. They just... But it's certainly understandable to want to have family, to want to have a partner, and to have a husband or a wife. My friend, the love of my life growing up, soul friends, definitely. Although we've lost, since I've been Catholic, I think he thinks that maybe I have something against, or they tend not to like the Catholic Church. He doesn't at all. I guess they assume, maybe because I think we still consider it a disorder, but to have love and compassion like we would for any disorder. Except I don't think they realize it with mystics until, if you can do something functional and marketable, in other words, like if I had the gift of healing or the bleeding stigmata, which I think that first priest thought I would have, and then all these people would be coming to the parish to see the stigmatic, and he would be my director, and he'd be famous, and he'd, write a book and whatever, And no, I wasn't going to be a stigmatic. God has me as a victim soul, called to suffer. And I hope and pray I do a good enough job with it. And I've got my disorder, my mystic disorder, and my spine disorder. So on we go with life, and we do our best. And so I don't want to be cruel or mean-seeming by my I guess my thought on it, as far as disorders, any number of them. including psychopaths and sociopaths. I had a great compassion for my former husband. I didn't understand until later, his disorder, but that's how things go, Not everybody's going to be on our same wavelength, but I did want to say I didn't mean any harm or meanness or whatsoever. I love my friend and I understand, and I love his wife. No, his husband. Rod's the woman and Rod's the wife and Jack's the husband. And so it's okay. And I'm fine with my disorder, and I'm accepting of, I've come to accept the awkwardness or the need for some in the church to do the devil's advocate thing. That's what the first priest told me he was supposed to do. He said the Vatican told him he was supposed to, or something. The old dog, he says, for pity's sakes, no, he's not been hired by the Vatican to, that other priest wasn't, to put me through the devil's advocacy, give me the business for being a mystic, being an odd, spiritually different person, a spiritually different type. And I accept it. And the therapy I tried to get to be normal wasn't appropriate. Wasn't, you can't have somebody be what they're not. And that's what they say for the same-sex people. They understand that. You can't generally change people like that. And, is it right to even try with sex change operations either? So anyway, I wanted to clear that up, that I'm a disordered person myself. So God bless his real presence in all of us. All of us. And thank you, Lord, for diagnostics and having a whole range of personality disorders. So I did probably get myself in trouble with my daughter, but she's gotten so stoic. She's been very hurt, and she was with a very cold husband. And so she's gotten very tough around anyone who's sick. And, stolid and stoic. And with herself, doesn't give herself any slack with sickness. And, if she's sick and you ask her, how are you doing? I'm fine. She just has become that way in the last maybe 10 years or so. And so I texted her and I said, please don't lose compassion or empathy. Totally. It's not a good marker for sociopaths and psychopaths. I said, we got to keep in bounds, so don't go too far with that. Still be kind. If somebody's sick, even if they're moaning or whatever, just try to ignore it. So, like a child moaning, that's different. But grown-ups, we should try to, it uses energy, emoting like that. Uses energy. But I admit, sometimes it feels good to moan, So, but, not if you're not going to take any medicine to try to get better, or even over-the-counter stuff, then, please try to suffer in silence. Then I guess is the message. not sure what I'd call this, my apology for not explaining further what I meant about disorders, sexual disorders. I don't think it's anything to be upset about. But they did remove it from the DSM, the Diagnostic Manual of Psychology. And they haven't included mystics because religion would be politically incorrect. If they did put it in, it would probably be really bad. A mental psychosis of some type. All right. I've said that God bless us all, and God bless His real presence in us all. Please pray for my left eye. Thank you. Some of you ask Jesus for me to heal me, please. There's a thought.